No system. There are many funny jokes. The delivery guy unexpectedly sold pierced through the Tang Dynasty. How did he make delivery popular in the Tang Dynasty without intelligence? The protagonist Li Kuan creates a perfect Lin'an city, making a group of princes and princesses unwilling to return to Chang'an. Li Chengqian. Father, I think I am suitable for farming. Look at how fragrant this bag of rice dumplings is. Li Tai. Father, I think I am suitable for inventing. The water wheel was invented by me, isn't it amazing? Li Ku. Father, I think I am suitable for raising pigs. Look at how fat these pigs are. Li Shimin. Do you all want the throne? Collective. No, it's better to stay comfortably in Lin'an City. Li Kuan. It's none of my business. They volunteered to help me work, it has nothing to do with me. Chapter 1. Selling to Lichun Courtyard, it's better to die and count the balls. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Madam Wang. These girls all have a contract to sell themselves, definitely not to be abducted. The government has filed it, and you see, they all look quite agile, right? I won't give you 50 guan either. If you want all 5 girls, how about giving you 220 guan? The person in charge of this business, like losing a lot of money, looked at Madame Wang in front of him and said somewhat aggrieved. At this time, it is evening, which is usually the hottest time for the Tang Dynasty Spring Tower. But the Lichun Courtyard located in Lin'an, Yangzhou, appears very lonely. At this moment, the girls were all listless and lying on the table, staring blankly at the pedestrians coming and going outside. And the Madame Wang's mother is discussing with a toothless person in the backyard about buying a maid. After listening to the quotation from Yaojin, Mrs. Wang felt a bit distressed. Several of her original top brands in Lichun Courtyard were dug up by other Chunlu buildings a few days ago. Moreover, they only have a contractual relationship with themselves and do not have any personal contracts, so they have to leave and I cannot keep them. This has led to a sharp decline in business at Lichun Courtyard recently. Originally, it was a time filled with guests and friends, but now it has become a deserted place. So he called the Yaojin today, preparing to buy a few more girls and cultivate them into new top players, striving to recreate the glory of the former Lichun Academy. But obviously, she still thinks the quotation from the dentist is a bit high. She has seen all the people brought by the dentist. The girls all have good looks and figures, and Wang's mother's sharp eyes can tell that they are all perfect bodies. However, they may not eat well in their daily lives, and each one appears a bit thin and weak at this time. Just as Mrs. Wang was examining these girls, one of them, a thin and frail girl, suddenly raised her head and shouted loudly. I'm a man, I don't want to be sold to brothels. Yaojin and Wang Mama were momentarily stunned, looking at the talking girl with some curiosity and doubt. But upon seeing this, the two of them couldn't help but shout. He has an Adam's apple, he's really a man. In an instant, Mrs. Wang's eyebrows immediately furrowed and she looked at Ren Yazi with unfriendly eyes, meaning you need to give an explanation. Ren Yazi is also confused. When this girl was sold to him, his parents said he was a girl, how could he be a man? Wipe. I remember when I heard myself say that girls sell more money than boys, so this child's parents sold him to me as a girl in order to deceive me a few more money. And I took in more children at that time. Seeing that he was pretty, I believed it was true. So it's not me deceiving Madame Wang. I just found out, right? I'm sure those 4 girls are all girls, because they are all female relatives of criminals. I personally bought them from the government. If you take all of it, 180 guan, how about I add this kid to your list? After Yaojin finished speaking, he looked at the young man pretending to be a girl. But at this moment, the young man was completely lifeless and seemed to feel that living was no longer meaningful. Madame Wang also turned her head to look at him, frowning tightly. What do I need a man for in a spring building? Can't you give me a cheaper price? Upon hearing the words, the teeth man revealed a lewd smile in his mouth. Hee hee. This young man is also handsome. Perhaps there are customers in your spring tower who like this one. Haha. You toothless person, don't talk nonsense. All the guests from my Lichun Courtyard are serious guests. Madame Wang looked at the tooth man with some disgust, so she didn't speak so politely. Her idea is very simple, and it is also a common thinking among women in the Tang Dynasty. She believes that it is understandable and acceptable for women to engage in menial work. What other buildings think of the man is not clear to her, but she has the final say in Lichun building and must not let a man do such a thing. Although Renyazi said it was very vulgar, during the Tang Dynasty, there were indeed many people who liked men's styles, so some brothel boys also had them. However, Wang Mama's Lichun Tower had never been there before. Even if Lichun Courtyard's business is worse than other brothels because of this, she wouldn't let Lichun Courtyard have any buddies. At this moment, the young couple who were living and losing their motivation were recalling the past in their minds. His name is Li Kuan, and he was originally a food delivery person. In the scorching summer, he took orders and delivered food, but he fainted during the delivery due to the heat. When I woke up, I found out that I was being sold to someone by the parents of this body, and it was also sold as a girl. He had originally thought of making a complaint, but when he saw other teenagers and many good-looking ones being bought away by a eunuch, he immediately shut up. Nima. Be a good girl, otherwise my brothers won't be safe. This bloody incident made Li Kuan no longer want to live, and he wanted to try to faint again, maybe even return to modern times. Before, the world itself had not yet delivered takeout to customers. If customers give a negative review later, they will lose money this month. As he was lost in thought, he suddenly heard the conversation between Renyazi and the madam, which frightened him and made him shiver. I'll wipe it. I'm already like this, can't the skin swallow be guaranteed? No way. I need to die quickly. Now that I die, I can still keep my mind clean. If I die late, my mind and body will not be clean. Li Kuan was engaged in a crazy ideological struggle in his mind, suddenly. He turned around and slammed into a tree in the backyard. Bang! Let's go. Li Kuan only vaguely saw a few leaves falling from his impact, and then became unconscious. Ah! Wang's mother and 4 girls were so scared that they screamed loudly. They were indeed scared. Okay, why did this young man suddenly crash into a tree and commit suicide? There was also a lot of blood splattered out, which looked quite permeable. Renyazi was also surprised, but then his eyes rolled and he suddenly felt that the young man's death might not be a good thing. So he came up with a plan. Madame Wang. Look at this person dying with you, you can't even buy it. Why don't you buy it? Although this young man is dead, he is still my person. If the government asks you for questioning, even though he is just a lowly person, he is not a servant of your family, and you will have to pay a lot of money. But if you still buy these girls at a price of 108, then I will also give you this young man as a gift. In that case, even if he is your own person, and he accidentally killed himself, he can be considered your own servant. Even if the government knows, it's hard to say anything, right? Madame Wang's originally frightened face instantly turned ugly. Although this person's words were somewhat taken advantage of others, it must be said that he was telling the truth. After all, the current laws of the Tang Dynasty do not impose excessive punishment on the killing of one's own servants, let alone the fact that this kid was killed by himself. After listening, Mrs. Wang felt a bit angry and thought to herself. They all committed suicide by hitting a tree, and you still have no conscience to threaten them with this method. However, despite being angry, she still turned around and returned to the store. After a while, she took out a cloth bag and threw it directly to someone. I'll give you the money, we'll settle the two, give me the deed of sale. Renyazi happily took the cloth bag, weighed it a bit, and felt that the weight was about the same. So he took out 5 sales contracts from his pocket and handed them to Lady Wang. Seeing the business completed, Ren Yazi happily said to Madame Wang. Then I'll leave first. Wishing Wang Laozhu a prosperous business. If you need someone again in the future, remember to come to me again. After Ren Yazi finished speaking, he happily carried a bag of money and left. That. Mom Wang. He's still angry. Among the 4 girls who had just bought it, one of them was squatting and sniffing for Li Kuan. She saw that there was still a faint breath, so she spoke up and told Madame Wang. After listening, Madame Wang also took a few steps to come to Li Kuan's side. I sniffed his breath and sure enough, he still had some energy. So she stood up and said. You 4 carry him and follow me, let's go out and find a doctor together. Whether he can live or not depends on his fate. A few girls also nodded and followed Mrs. Wang out of the backyard, walking towards the store. At this moment, on Lin'an Street, more than 10 military and military figures were walking unsteadily on the street of Lichun Courtyard. Ha! Sima Butcher. How could there be a Lichun Courtyard here too? The man named Sima Butcher, upon hearing this, looked up at the plaque and immediately asked back. When did General Cheng learn to read? I don't even know. The person burst into laughter after speaking. How can I not recognize these words? There is a brothel in Chang'an with the same words on its signboard. Sima Jun, carrying a medicine box on his back, was speechless in his response to Yaojin. He thought to himself that you could only recognize these local signs. However, he still flattered Yaojin in his mouth. Anyway, General Cheng, you already know a few big characters. Haha. Of course, let's go in together and have fun, Sima Butcher. After speaking, Yaojin didn't even give Sima Jun the opportunity to speak, so he entered the Lichun Academy first. P.S. This article is a novel written by the Tang Dynasty, borrowing the historical structure of the Tang Dynasty. In order to enrich the novel, some historical content locations may be changed. We hope readers can read it rationally. This article mainly focuses on multiple jokes and humorous points, hoping that readers can have a happier time in their leisure time. Chapter 2. Li Kuan, Prince. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Oh. Sisters are coming. Get up and greet these military masters. At this moment, in the Lichun Courtyard, a woman wearing a green dress was lying on the table, staring out the door in a daze. Suddenly, a group of military officials dressed in armor walked in, and she was startled. But in an instant, she became energetic and quickly stood up to greet the sisters. However, at this moment, Mrs. Wang, who came out of the backyard, saw that customers had finally arrived at the store, and as soon as more than 10 arrived, she immediately smiled and smiled. And as a result, she also forgot that behind her, 4 maids were carrying a bleeding young man with a broken head and following her out. Yaojin, who was originally joking with a group of soldiers, furrowed his brows when he saw Li Kuan being carried with his head broken and blood flowing. Which one belongs to the shop owner? Come out. What's going on? Yaojin extended his sturdy hand and pointed to Li Kuan who was being carried. Wang's mother was taken aback and turned to look behind her. In the next moment, she immediately understood that the military master might have misunderstood something about emotions. So she quickly twisted her waist and walked towards Yaojin, talking incessantly. I misunderstood, Junyi. You misunderstood. Do you think this young man was injured by us brothel people? That's really unfair to the madam. Oh, this person. I just bought a servant, probably unwilling to be sold to Chunlu. I couldn't help but crash into a tree and commit suicide. But at least there's still 1 breath left. I was just about to take him out to find a doctor to see. After listening, Yaojin stared fiercely into Wang Mama's eyes with a pair of tiger eyes. After a moment, he saw that although she looked a little scared in her eyes, she did not dodge, which made him believe a bit of this madam's words. So he turned his head and said to Sima Jun. Sima Butcher. Go see if that young man can still be saved. If he can, help cure him. The madam was overjoyed when she heard the somewhat ill-tempered military master say this, and turned to look at the person who was called Sima Butcher by the military master. This military master. I saw you carrying a medicine box. It must be a doctor. Could you please help me, madam? I am extremely grateful. At this moment, Sima Jun felt that his face must be even darker than Yuqi Jingda's. I passively followed Cheng Yaojin to stroll around a brothel, but surprisingly, I had to treat and save people. This is why the old man, who always likes to beat people up, speaks up and is too lazy to cause trouble for others. The madam saw the doctor's somewhat reluctant expression, so she nervously said. This military master, if you are willing to help him, you can give him one as a gift later. Oh no. 2 girls will accompany you. Do you think it's feasible? Sima Jun's face turned even darker, and he thought to himself, what kind of person are you treating me like? Am I that kind of person? I just have medical ethics, I can't just turn a blind eye to death. It's not just for some girl's sake, okay? So he said. First, find a bed for this kid to lie down on, and I'll take a look at the situation. Upon hearing this, the madam immediately happily called for someone to help take Li Kuan to the backyard room. Sima Jun also followed, but halfway through, he turned back and said to the madam. Remember to keep it for me, the girl in the green dress and the girl lying on the table at the corner. After speaking, regardless of the expressions on the people behind him, he hurriedly went to see Li Kuan for treatment. Cheng Yaojin laughed heartily at this sight. Why don't you pretend to be polite to me? You're also a scumbag. Brothers, find a girl yourself. Today, I'll treat Mr. Cheng. Upon hearing this, the soldiers all rushed towards the girls with joy. In a room in the backyard, Sima frowned and flipped over to look at Li Kuan's head. Hush. This collision is a bit fierce, it's even cracked. It's so big that it didn't even die. It's really strange. After hesitating for a moment, he asked everyone else to go out, and then he opened the medicine box and took out a few special knives. First, he took out a small willow blade and pressed his fingers on Li Kuan's head, then began to shave his hair. With the willow blade constantly flying in the hands of Sima Jun, in no time, Li Kuan successfully became a monk. But at this moment, Sima Jun was stunned. In the next moment, he seemed to see something unbelievable. He stared at the scalp behind Li Kuan's head, which had been shaved off by him, and his whole body was trembling. Because he saw a small fish-shaped birthmark on the scalp behind Li Kuan's head. And he had seen this birthmark, which was still more than a decade ago. At that time, His Majesty, who was still a general of the Taiyans prefecture, took a difficult childbirth woman with him overnight to deliver. Fortunately, the woman delivered it in a timely manner, and with all her efforts, she finally managed to ensure the safety of the mother and son. And that child also has this birthmark, and there is a small circular birthmark on their buttocks. Although His Highness Qin did not explicitly state that the child was his, Sima Jun could tell from His Highness Qin's tense expression that the child was his son. Sima Jun dared not think anymore and quickly pulled off Li Kuan's pants. Sure enough, Li Kuan also had a circular birthmark on his buttocks. Sima Jun trembled and his willow leaf knife fell to the ground. It's him, it's really him, this. This is the prince. What should we do? What should we do? After Sima Jun was confirmed, he felt a bit at a loss and anxious, spinning around in place, unsure of what to do. After hesitating for a while, he stomped his foot, turned around and left the door, panicking to find Cheng Yaojin. Unfortunately, I searched around but didn't see Cheng Yaojin. When I finally asked the madam, Cheng Yaojin entered the room. But at this moment, Sima Jun couldn't manage so much. He directly asked about the location of the room and kicked open the door. Yaojin was all dumbfounded, half of his pants were taken off. You scared me so much that I couldn't even look up and be human. Before Yaojin could get angry, Sima Jun grabbed his wrist and ran out. Yaojin was speechless, and Sima Jun, who was usually weak, only had a masculine appearance when cutting and repairing the soldier's limbs, which was why he often called him Sima Butcher. But now it's obvious that you're not cutting yourself. I suddenly became so manly that I dared to drag myself out of the room. But when Yaojin regained his senses, he was ready to let Sima Butcher see what the real man was. He realized that he had already been dragged by Sima Jun to the young man's room, where his head was broken and blood was flowing. As soon as Sima Jun entered the room, he quickly closed the doors and windows before trembling in telling Yaojin what had happened. After hearing this, Yaojin suddenly emitted a murderous aura from him and said to Sima Jun with a gloomy face. Did anyone else see it just now besides you? No. You know I treat people, I don't like people around me. Yaojin finally breathed a sigh of relief and thought for a moment before he said. Save the prince first. Don't make any noise about it in advance. We'll tell your majesty when we get back to Chang'an. Your majesty will decide how to arrange him. Sima Jun nodded and finally gathered the courage again. He picked up a knife and needle, lit a candle with a fire folder, and began to carefully disinfect these tools. Usually, when he sutures the wounds of those big-headed soldiers in the military camp, he doesn't pay so much attention. This was one night when he accidentally dropped a needle into the fire while sewing a soldier's wound, but there were no other tools available at the time, so he had to use something to clip out the needle and continue using it. But the next day he found that most of the wounds of the soldiers who had not been treated with the needle before being burned by the fire had symptoms of inflammation, but none of the soldiers who had been treated with the needle after being burned by the fire had symptoms of inflammation. So for safety reasons, he still roasted the knife and needle before treating the prince. It was already late at night, and except for the rooms that still made strange noises and were still brightly lit, there was only this room in the backyard left. Shit! The room door was suddenly opened, and Yaojin and Sima Jun seemed to have returned from the scorching Nanzhao, covered in sweat, as if they had been pulled out of the water. The madam outside the door and the 4 maids I just bought today are waiting outside the door, looking at them nervously. Don't worry. Huang. What are you worried about? This guy is very lucky and can't die. I guess he'll just sleep and feed him some porridge when he wakes up. Sima Jun almost said the wrong thing, but luckily he was grabbed by Yaojin's waist and regained his senses. But this scene made the madam's eyes look strange, and her heart suddenly shuddered. 2 big men squatted in the room for a few hours, and when they came out, they were sweating all over and even pinching their waist. This. Chapter 3. Wang Er. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The next day, Li Kuan woke up from the urge to urinate. He got up to go to the bathroom, but when he got up, he was dumbfounded and looked around at the antique rooms. Is this still in the Tang Dynasty? Did you not die successfully? Hush. Suddenly, he felt a pain in his head, which made him completely give up. Hey! Am I dying of loneliness? Now let him die again, he dares not. Thinking about the pain from yesterday when he hit a tree, he doesn't want to go through it again. At this moment, the door opened and a woman in a green dress walked in carrying some food. Anyway, according to Li Kuan's modern aesthetic, this woman's appearance is no less than that of various internet celebrities in later generations. Gauzy face, with a pointed nose and a small mouth. The eyebrows are long and straight, slightly raised, revealing a hint of confidence and agility. The figure is not to mention, it should be raised or raised. But unfortunately, her clothes restrained her proud figure. Ovian saw that the young man had been looking at her all along. Although his eyes were also burning, there was no uncomfortable feeling when the guests looked at her, so her attitude on the face was slightly better. Mama Wang asked me to see if you woke up. If you wake up, get up and have some congee before you go to bed. In addition, you should take a good rest these days and arrange your work when you have a good rest. When Li Kuan heard that he was going to work, his whole body became excited. That sister. Can I not do the work here? I know a lot of other things, I can do other things. Greenfield was originally planning to turn around and leave after explaining, but she never expected that this young man would even make a request to her. However, she cannot make the decision on this matter, after all, she is just a red card of Lichun Academy. She was an orphan at a young age, but fortunately, Wang's mother took her in Lichun Academy. Although they have a good relationship, this does not mean that she can be the owner of Lichun Academy at will. But she was also curious why the young man didn't want to be a servant here, doing some easy work of welcoming and sending, and instead demanded to do other things. So she curved her lips slightly, showing a faint smile, and looked at him. Can you tell me what you can do? Li Kuan was immediately dumbfounded by the question from the green field. Yeah. What can I do with a spring tower? After thinking for a while, I couldn't think of what I could do, and I was so conflicted that I wanted to grab my head. Hiss. I accidentally bumped into the stitched wound on my head and grinned in pain. Seeing his appearance, the green field also smiled sweetly. All right. You should rest well first. Wait until your injury is healed, then think slowly. After finishing speaking, Lvine was ready to go out, but when she reached the door, she turned around and smiled at Li Kuan. Oh. By the way. My name is Lvine, you can call me Yin Xia in the future. Also, Wang Mama asked me to tell you that no matter what your previous name is, when you come here, you will have the same surname as Wang Mama, and in the future, you will be called Wang Er. Remember it clearly. Without waiting for Li Kuan's reply, Lvine turned around and left. After she completely disappeared outside the door and could not hear footsteps, Li Kuan muttered. Returning Wang Er, why not Zhang San, Li Si, Wang Er, Ma Zi? To put it bluntly, but now that people are under the eaves, Li Kuan still accepts reality. After eating the porridge sent by Sister Yin, Li Kuan remembered that he was still holding his urine, so he hurried out to find the toilet. After wandering around in the backyard for a while, he finally found the restroom behind a wall filled with nitrate. After painfully resolving his physiological problems, Li Kuan finally had the leisure to look around. To be honest, the backyard of Lichun Courtyard is quite large. At least Li Kuan took a long time to find the restroom, and it is estimated that the surrounding houses are over 1,000 square meters. Li Kuan sighed and thought, a brothel's backyard is so big, how worthless the land should be. Think about the land that is so precious in the future, even if you run a lifetime of food delivery, you won't be able to buy a house in a first-tier city. I was calculating in my heart how long it would take for me to afford a house, but before I knew it, I wandered into the front hall of Lichun Courtyard. Suddenly, Li Kuan noticed that Wang's mother was arguing with a chubby woman dressed similarly to her. In order to hear clearly, he walked closer. Madam Wang. Look, your spring tower doesn't have much business, why don't you sell it to us, Happiness Tower? It was the chubby woman speaking, and Li Kuan was overjoyed at her words. It seemed that this person wanted to annex the struggling Lichun building. But Li Kuan didn't expect that Wang's mother wouldn't want to sell it, so he listened to her. Zhang Erniu, I've said many times that I don't sell Lichun Tower. I know your owner is the Chui family, but what if you don't do it unless you step on my body and take this Lichun Tower away? If you can't do it, just get away from me. Yo-yo. Madam Wang. Why are you so angry? Business is a matter of negotiation, you just need to quote a price. Li Kuan looked at the woman named Zhang Erniu who was speaking again, and saw that she had a big belly and was wearing silk, but had a vulgar look on her face. Obviously, this person said that asking only the price was just a joke. If Wang Mama really agreed, it would be considered good to be skinned. Wang's mother's eyes were slightly red at this moment, indicating that she had cried before, but she still stubbornly said to the chubby woman. No matter how much it costs, I won't sell it. Even if I lose money every day, I'm willing to. You're not welcome here, get out of here. Hee hee. Madam Wang, please don't toast or refuse to drink. We can poach a few of your top players, and we can also poach all the other girls in the future. I'll see how you can continue to drive Lichun Tower in Lin'an City. As soon as the chubby woman named Zhang Erniu finished speaking, she twisted her fat body and, with the help of a few servants, walked out of the Lichun Tower. Wang's mother saw that she had already walked away and couldn't control herself anymore. She lay on the table and cried loudly. Li Kuan's mouth furrowed and he thought to himself, if the business wasn't good, he would sell it. But in an instant, he shook his head again and still couldn't sell it. If he sold it, he probably would work under that chubby woman, which would make him even more miserable. It's better to come up with some ideas on your own to make the business of Lichun building better, so the possibility of being sold should be eliminated. Li Kuan thought of this and immediately felt that he had a place to be useful. Yes. I am a person of the future, and it is not easy to revitalize a brothel. So Li Kuan walked towards Wang's mother with a smile on his face. Wang's mother cried on the table for a while, but soon she adjusted her mindset and lifted her head to find a handkerchief to wipe her eyes. In an instant, he looked up and handed over a cloth to wipe the table. Wang mama, stop crying and wipe up quickly. I have a way to make Lichun Building's business better. I thought some naive girl was wiping her tears with a cloth, but when I heard a boy's voice, I turned my head and saw that it was the boy who hit the wall yesterday. Ha! Wang Er. It's you, you're awake. How are you feeling better? There's no business in the store now, so why don't you go back and rest for now? Madam Wang had obviously heard that Greenfield had told her that this young man's new name was Wang Er, but she did not take Wang Er's word seriously, only thinking that it was Wang Er comforting her. Li Kuan saw that Wang's mother clearly didn't believe him, so he picked up a cloth and washed her face. He then put down the cloth and looked at her face left and right. Wang mama, who doesn't cry, looks much better. I guess Wang mama was also a beautiful woman when she was young. Originally, she was angry because Wang Er wiped her face with a cloth, but when she heard Li Kuan's words, Wang's mother burst into tears and smiled. Turning around, there is no good airway. Can you talk about any ways we can make Lichun Building's business better? Li Kuan saw that Wang's mother was willing to listen to his own way, so he immediately sat cross-legged beside her excitedly and said. This spring tower, in other words, is a place where men come to spend money. To make men willing to come here and spend money, the first thing to do is to arouse their interest. The industrialization of Chunlu is too singular, and there are also many in the world. It's just about competing for the top brand and fame, but isn't the top brand also created? Besides, I think Green Sister is not bad looking. She should be well packaged and definitely not inferior to other top brands in Spring Tower. That's right, the green field is something I grew up watching from a young age. Can it be inferior? Upon hearing Wang Er's words, Wang's mother gradually smiled on her face. Chapter 4. The Young Master of Lichun Academy. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Without taking Wang's mother's words, Li Kuan continued on his own. Men. What we can't get is the best, so in the future, we will remove the superficial business of Lichun Courtyard and switch to other projects that make customers comfortable. Wang's mother quickly interrupted him when she heard this. How about that? Although I agree with your statement that not getting a man is the best, can we still be called brothels if we don't do business in brothels? If a brothel is filled with pure servants and doesn't have much talent to show off, I think no guests would be willing to go to such a place. Li Kuan patiently listened to Wang's mother's words before continuing. Mom Wang, don't worry. Let me explain the renovation plan to you first, and then you can draw a conclusion, okay? Wang's mother actually doesn't have the patience to listen to him anymore. After all, the most important part of the spring tower has been abandoned, so no matter how much it is renovated, the business will not be good. Just now, the madam from Happiness Building came, and Mrs. Wang sent all the girls back to her room. Now that the madam has left, she also needs to go upstairs and call the girls down. After all, there are no girls sitting in the hall. If a guest comes, they will definitely turn around and leave when no one is around. So she didn't want to listen to what Wang Er was saying, so she stood up and prepared to leave. But as soon as she stood up, she accidentally saw the red birthmark on Li Kuan's head. Although it was tightly wrapped in burlap, it still showed a little and was seen by her. Wang's mother was stunned for a moment, but the next moment, she was so excited that she wanted to pull the burlap on Li Kuan's head. However, as soon as her hand reached out, she was afraid of hurting Li Kuan. So Mrs. Wang's face was filled with surprise and disbelief, while her hands remained in an extended position. Li Kuan saw that Wang's mother didn't have the patience to listen to his introduction of the renovation plan, so he became anxious and got up to stop her. But when Li Kuan stood up, he was stunned. Seeing Wang's mother in this state, a word suddenly came to his mind: what kind of shape is this? It's quite unique. How about relying on a dead wax figure? After Li Kuan stood up, Wang's mother looked at her dumbfounded. She finally regained her senses, feeling a little uneasy and excited. Finally, she stepped forward and pulled Li Kuan back to sit down. That Wang Er. Where are you from in your hometown? Do you remember your last name or something? Li Kuan couldn't even figure out the situation. Why did Wang's mother ask me this? I really don't know where Tang's hometown is. Anyway, in my memory, that Li Kuan has been a refugee with his parents since I can remember. But I definitely remember my surname. The names of 2 lifetimes are the same, can they not be clear? But seeing Wang's mother's earnest gaze, he still replied. I don't remember my hometown. My previous surname was Li, and I shared the same surname as that old bastard from Datong. My full name was Li Kuan. Boom. It's like a bomb exploding in Wang's mother's mind. She promised the deceased young lady that she had been looking for the young master for so many years. Is that the person in front of her? When I was a child, I took a bath for the young master and remembered clearly that he had birthmarks on his head and buttocks. The little birthmark exposed on his head had been confirmed by her, and it was very likely that he was the real young master according to his name. If there is still a birthmark on the buttocks, then it is 100% the young master. So Wang's mother woke up from extreme shock and turned to Li Kuan with slightly moist eyes. Wang. Oh. Li Kuan. You'll be called Li Kuan in the future, there's no need to change your name. Can I take a look at your butt? What? Li Kuan suddenly felt a sensation of his hair standing upright. Can't his skin swallow still escape being ravaged? Does Mrs. Wang feel like she's useless and can only do that? I'm starting to check if my equipment is good. No. No. Mom Wang. Please calm down and listen to me. I'm still useful, really. Even if you don't need me to help you renovate the Lichun Courtyard, I can do odd jobs and sweep the floor, but don't let me be ridden. Wang's mother's excited expression froze instantly, and she remembered yesterday's words from Ren Yazi in her mind. Wang Er only bumped into a tree after listening to them. And when Greenfield reported to her this morning, he also said that he doesn't want to work here. Considering the current situation, how could Wang Mama, who has been running this business for years, not understand? He thought he wanted to sell his emotions too. This really makes her laugh and cry a bit. That Li Kuan. I feel like you might have misunderstood something. I bought you back to make you a servant and do some welcoming and sending work, not the kind you think. After listening to Wang's mother's words, Li Kuan felt extremely embarrassed. He didn't even mean it, it was all his own imagination. Although his face is extremely hot now, fortunately, Pai Yanzi has managed to save it, which has relieved him and left him with no intention of brainlessly transforming the Lichun Courtyard. If you don't use your brain, don't you think it's good to just be a salted fish every day? Maybe one day you'll have a hiccup and be able to go back to the old world. So Li Kuan patted the non-existent dust on his buttocks, then changed to a flattering smile and looked at Wang Mama. Boss. Don't worry, in the future, I will handle the hygiene here and I will definitely clean it up for you. After speaking, he turned his head and prepared to go back to sleep. Wang's mother grabbed him and said, "Don't leave yet. I took off my pants and let me take a look." The flattering smile of Li Kuan that had not yet disappeared instantly froze, so didn't he have to sell his own meat? Why do we have to rely on the equipment? What's the point? Let's just slip away first. Anyway, I won't show it to Mom Wang. The two of them were chasing and tugging in the hall. Seeing that they couldn't catch him, Mrs. Wang became anxious and shouted loudly upstairs. "Girls, hurry downstairs and help me peel off his pants." Many windows in the rooms upstairs were opened, revealing many small faces painted with rouge and pollen as they looked down. These people saw Wang Mama chasing the boy named Wang Er, and even heard their own Wang Mama shouting, "Just show me your butt." This scene excited all these girls, and they immediately rushed downstairs to grab Li Kuan's clothes. "Let go. Don't pinch me. You don't talk about martial arts, if you have the ability, let go of me, fight alone." Li Kuan was completely ready to cry without tears. He was pressed to the ground by a group of birds, and swallows, and was still touching himself, which was a great shame. But after a moment, he felt his butt cool and said to himself, "It's over. I still haven't saved it." Now Li Kuan finally shed tears of relief. "Young master. It's really young master. Girls, hurry up and help the young master get up first." Wang's mother finally saw the birthmark on Li Kuan's buttocks, feeling extremely excited. Watching these girls wanting to continue digging deep on the young master, she quickly spoke out to stop them. Wang's mother's words made a group of girls pout and reluctantly stop their hand movements. Li Kuan was already crying and preparing to accept reality, only to find that the birds and swallows around him had scattered, and Yin Jie even pulled herself up from the ground. Li Kuan, who still had tears on his face, had not yet recovered from the stimulation just now when he saw Wang's mother suddenly kneeling down towards him. "Girls. Congratulations to the young master on returning home." Wang's mother looked up at Li Kuan with excited eyes and said loudly. Suddenly, all the girls around, except for the 4 girls who only came yesterday, immediately knelt down at Li Kuan and shouted happily, "Congratulations to the young master for coming home." At this moment, the 4 maids who had just bought them all knelt down towards the young man in front of them, and they panicked and followed suit. Li Kuan couldn't describe his appearance with an expression at this moment. Tears were hanging on his face, his eyes were wide open, his mouth could even be stuffed with eggs, and he was still holding his pants with both hands, staring foolishly at the girls in this place. After Wang's mother confirmed that Li Kuan was the young master, she felt even more that he looked like a young lady from before, with tears on his face, much like the tearful appearance of a young lady before parting. Seeing that the young master seemed unable to accept this sudden situation for a while, Mrs. Wang quickly got up and helped Li Kuan put on his pants. Chapter 5. Li Kuan's background. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Young master, Aunt Wang has been searching for you so hard. Fortunately, the poor heavens finally allowed me to find you. I know, young master, it's difficult for you to accept at the moment, and you're not sure what happened. Come and sit down first, Aunt Wang will slowly talk to you. Li Kuan sat cross-legged like a puppet, pulled by his mother Wang. Number 34, more than a decade ago, during the chaos of the late Sui and early Tang dynasties, my young lady was a branch of the Wang family in Taiyuan. Upon being ordered by her ancestral lineage, she went to deliver supplies to the Tang army, only to find the Tang army with injured legs and feet on the way back. Number 34, number 34, the young lady had a kind heart, so she secretly brought him home and even invited a doctor to treat him. Number 34, during the treatment period, Miss has to go to Tang Jun's place every day to deliver food. She goes back and forth, and it seems that Miss has fallen in love with that Tang Jun. Later, 3 months passed and the Tang army's injuries were healed. He used the excuse that the Sui dynasty was about to be destroyed, disregarding the young lady's repeated attempts to stay, and finally secretly left at night. But after Tang Jun left, the young lady's belly grew bigger day by day, and she couldn't hide it. One day, the master discovered that the young lady was pregnant. I remember when the master found out that the young lady was pregnant before marriage, he got very angry that day and asked the young lady to have the child in her belly knocked out, but the young lady refused to accept it. In the end, in a fit of anger, the master drove the young lady out of the royal mansion. The young lady was driven away, and Xiaochun and I, the personal maid, also followed the young lady out of the royal mansion. Fortunately, Miss is usually kind and generous, and has helped many refugees and orphans before. They saw the young lady being driven out of the royal mansion and built the best thatched cottage for us in the refugee camp, so that the young lady could give birth smoothly. 6 or 7 months have passed like this, and Miss is about to give birth. During this period, no one from the Wang family has come to visit Mississippi. I know Miss doesn't care whether the Wang family recognizes her or not, all she cares about is that Tang Jun. Miss told me that Tang Jun's surname is Li, and that Tang Jun's appearance is also very outstanding. I remember his appearance very clearly. So I thought that Miss was about to give birth, and I definitely wanted that man to come and take a look. So I discussed with Xiaochun. She stayed to take care of the young lady, and I went to find that man. Then I searched around and secretly ran for many days before finally finding a Tang army camp. I asked them if there was anyone surnamed Li who was handsome and had suffered a thigh injury before. Unfortunately, I patrolled the entire perimeter of the military camp and couldn't find this person. I couldn't enter the camp, so I couldn't find him either. Until I was disheartened and ready to go back, several generals on horseback rushed out of the military camp. One of them, a man riding a white horse, was the Tang army that Miss had been longing for. I stopped in the middle of the road without saying a word, just as the horse's hooves were about to step on me. They all stopped in time at a critical moment. The man also recognized me after getting off the horse. I remember his first expression at the time was very nervous, and he grabbed my arm and asked my miss if something had happened, otherwise he wouldn't have come here to find him. I saw that this man was not ungrateful, and at least he was worried about the young lady. That's when I told him everything that happened during these times. After hearing this, he didn't say a word and just pulled me to find the lady. When she arrived at the refugee camp, the young lady was about to give birth, but she didn't know why she couldn't, so the man went crazy to look for a doctor on the street. If he didn't want to come, he just tied her up and brought her back. Unfortunately, all the doctors shook their heads after reading it, indicating that they were powerless. The baby's fetal position was not correct and could not be born. The man was angry and wanted to kill those doctors, but was stopped by the young lady. In the end, he hesitated for a while before telling me and Xiaochun that he wanted to take the young lady to find a divine doctor. And he asked himself and others to wait here, while he directly picked up the young lady and rode away on horseback. Many days passed like this, and the man rushed the carriage to bring back the young lady with a happy expression and holding the young master. Unfortunately, he only stayed with the young lady for 3 days and hurriedly left, but before he left, he named the young master Li Kuan. Not long after he left, a group of soldiers from unknown places attacked the refugee camp. Just that day, everyone went to the city to take the congee from the palace. Miss will definitely not go to the Wang mansion's relief. Besides, the child is still young and she needs to take care of it, so only Xiaochun and I will go to receive the relief. Miss will take care of the young master at home. But when Xiaochun and I found out that there was a rebel army going to the refugee camp, we were all scared and quickly rushed back. Unfortunately, when Xiaochun and I returned to the thatched cottage, it was already late. Miss was lying on the ground covered in blood, while you, young master, were missing. Perhaps she felt that we were back, and the young lady seemed to be looking back. When she saw us, she cried and insisted that we help her find the young master. We two weak women find it difficult to survive in this chaotic world, let alone go find you, young master. So after the refugees helped arrange a simple funeral for the young lady, Xiaochun and I left the refugee camp with some orphans. In order to find you, young master, I discussed with Xiaochun. In this chaotic world, the only thing a woman wants to do is in the brothel. So Xiaochun led a group of orphans to Chang'an to search, while I came to Lin'an city in Yangzhou. Wang's mother finished speaking with tears in her eyes, then looked around and continued speaking to Li Kuan. Most of these girls nowadays are orphans who came out with me back then. The girls around me were all red-eyed at this moment, thinking they all missed Miss Wang. Li Kuan felt quite embarrassed at this moment, but had to say something, so he asked his mother Wang. So what? Mom Wang. Are you saying, I'm that child? But I remember my parents and I were both refugees, and they had no choice but to sell me to Rinyatsi. Wang's mother saw that Li Kuan seemed to be still doubting his own background, so she explained why she confirmed it was his reason. Young master. I didn't admit my mistake, Aunt Wang. I think it was an accident when you were abducted that led to your adoption by your later adoptive parents. You have a birthmark on your head and a birthmark on your buttocks. When I was a child, I and your Aunt Chun both saw it when we bathed you, so we definitely can't be wrong. What? Emotionally picking my pants is just to see the birthmark on my buttocks. Li Kuan is so embarrassed again, he misunderstood again. So now we have found you, young master, and all these industries belong to you. And I will also write to your Aunt Chun, telling her that she has found you, young master. I believe she must be very happy too, and her property is also reserved for you. Without waiting for Li Kuan to speak, Mrs. Wang rushed to the room and brought the land deed and account book. Li Kuan instinctively took what Wang Mama had brought, but he was still in a daze. I inherited a large amount of property just by listening to a story. It seems that the heavens sent me to the Tang Dynasty, but instead of giving me the golden finger, they gave me a brothel. Oh no. According to Aunt Wang, the property of Aunt Chun in Chang'an was also left to me. Young master, your spring aunt and I each opened this Lichun building. My name is Wang Li, and your spring aunt's name is Wang Chun, so we called it this name. Now it's all up to you, you can choose a new name. Wang's mother looked at Li Kuan like she was looking at her own child, with a loving mother's smile on her face. Upon hearing Wang's mother's words, Li Kuan immediately refused. How can this be done? This Lichun building is your and Aunt Chun's hard work, how can I take it? Wang's mother became anxious upon hearing this and said to Li Kuan in a bad tone. Do you know why Aunt Chun and I are alive? It's just for you, young master. Otherwise, we would have followed Miss long ago. If you don't want it, I'll write to inform Aunt Chun that we'll sell Lichun building to that annoying Chui family, and then we'll follow Mississippi. Li Kuan is all foolish. It's not even possible. Wang Mama has forced her to die. Ancient people were really foolish and loyal. If we put aside modern times, even if we voluntarily claim to be their young master, they will not pay attention to us. However, Li Kuan was truly moved, not because they left so much for him, but because of their loyalty and righteousness towards the deceased. Chapter 6. Spring orchid, summer rain, autumn fragrance, winter plum. Are you serious? You are listening at novelfull.audio. So Li Kuan tightly squeezed the land deed and bill, but then returned them to Wang Mama. Aunt Wang. I have received my inheritance, but please help me take these. Since you, Aunt Chun, and so many other sisters are so loyal to my mother, I swear here today that I will make sure you all have a good life in the future. Now that I have taken over Lichun building, the first thing I want to announce is that it will close down and close down. From now on, Lichun Building will no longer do any business in the flesh and skin industry. All the girls were surprised with their mouths open, as if curious as to why the young master had made such a self-destructive decision to cut off his wealth. But then they came up with their own ideas, which should be because the young master felt sorry for them and didn't want them to do things that please men again. Suddenly, everyone's eyes turned red and they were moved to death. But if Chunlu didn't do these businesses, sisters and young masters would have to drink from the west. Wang's mother, on the other hand, looked indifferent. Anyway, the stall has already been handed over to the young master, and he can do whatever he wants. Even if he loses everything, it's better to start this business with the girls again. Li Kuan saw that no one had any objections, and he was very impressive. It seems that his identity as a young master is very questionable. Mom Wang, do you have any familiar craftsmen? Call them over today and I want to renovate the Lichun Courtyard. Wang's mother nodded and said, there are also refugees who came to Luoqing later to do this. I'll go call someone later. Li Kuan nodded and then looked at the girls in the brothel. Sisters. Which one of you is good at showing off? Bring some paper and pens later, I'll draw something, and you can help me do it. After Li Kuan finished speaking, he suddenly realized that the girls who were originally chattering were all silent. What's wrong with this? I just want to draw some styles of clothing from later generations and let you follow them. Why don't you all speak up? At this moment, the green field blushed slightly and said. Young master. Most of us have come from poor families since we were young, how can we afford to buy fabrics and practice embroidery? Faint out. Li Kuan did not take this into consideration. He thought that ancient women were all beauties of great families, and he knew how to show off. Helplessly, Li Kuan could only think of not being able to draw the pattern and let Wang's mother go out and find someone to do it. But at this moment, the four girls who had been silent on the edge looked at each other and finally walked out with some embarrassment. Young master. The four of us were originally officials' female relatives and knew some needlework, but we didn't know what kind of clothing the young master needed to make. Wang's mother used to have a headache. None of the girls under her command knew how to become famous, but the four girls she only took in yesterday actually did. This is really an unexpected joy. So she quickly said to the four maids. Chunlan. Xiaoyu. Qiuxiang. Dongmei. The four of you know how to become female celebrities, so listen carefully to the young master's arrangements. In the future, you can follow the young master as his personal maids. When Li Kuan heard Wang's mother calling them by their four names, he was almost struck by lightning. Fortunately, both Qiuxiang and Dongmei came out, which immediately reminded him of Tang Bohu and Ma Dongmei. So he suppressed a smile and looked at the four of them. Let's each say their own names. Aunt Wang called your names all at once, but I can't distinguish them. This sentence immediately made the other girls cover their mouths and giggle. Li'an also introduced Li Kuan with a smile on her face. The young master has small dimples on his face, and the girl with a small and fleshy face is Chunlan. The one with a particularly large chest is called Xiaoyu, and the tallest one is Dongmei. Number 34, the most elegant and beautiful among the four of them is Qiuxiang. According to Wang's mother, it was she who discovered that you were still angry yesterday that saved you. Number 34, after listening to the introduction of Li'an, Li Kuan also glanced at Qiuxiang several times. Sure enough, this girl was really good looking, but more importantly, he was grateful for her words yesterday, which could be considered as saving his life. Perhaps Li Kuan's gaze was too hot, and Qiuxiang felt a bit shy when she was seen, whispering softly. Young master. I'll go find you a pen and paper, and then I'll hurry off with my head down. Wang's mother nodded in relief as she watched the scene. Young master is not too young, let these four maids be his warm up maids, he thought to himself. Li Kuan didn't know what Aunt Wang was thinking at this moment. If he knew, he would definitely scold Aunt Wang. Young master, I am still underage and don't want to harm me, but he can keep it for me. At this point, Chengqian had already brought the paper and pen over, and also thoughtfully helped Li Kuan flatten the paper and grind it. Li Kuan suddenly realized that this damn feudal society was so fragrant, and the feeling of being served by beautiful women was too satisfying. Seeing that Chengqian's ink had already been ground, Li Kuan gently smoothed his cuffs, grabbed a brush, and started painting with the ink. Fortunately, he had studied Chinese painting for a period of time before, so he still had no problem using a brush. Don't ask why you went to learn traditional Chinese painting, just ask yourself why you are also an omnipotent food delivery guy. Writing with a brush is just a small trick. Thinking of some JKs and Kipeos that he had seen in later generations, Li Kuan immediately struck a stroke of inspiration. In the astonished gaze of a group of girls, he quickly drew several styles of Kipeos and JK uniforms. Wow! I must make these clothes, they all look great. Especially this wide little skirt. Chunlan revealed her signature dimples, her eyes sparkling as she stared at the clothes painted by Li Kuan, almost drooling. Li Kuan raised one hand to signal everyone not to worry, this is not over yet. Then he lowered his head again and started drawing underwear. When the first set of bikini-style clothes was painted, even the bold girls in the brothel blushed. Young master. You're also wearing clothes. With just a little fabric, how can you wear it? Ulvian blushed and complained to Li Kuan about the lack of fabric. Li Kuan laughed heartily and pointed to the lingerie he had drawn, saying to the girls around him. The girl doesn't know how to cover it properly, but after 30, she finds it too small. When things are made, you will thank me. Wang's mother also looked at the clothes patterns painted by Li Kuan, and her old face turned a little shy. What have our young master experienced before? How can women understand clothing so well? Forget it. Feel free to tinker with the young master, why don't you go out and help him find someone to build a house? So Wang's mother didn't tell Li Kuan and the others, so she quietly left the door. Li Kuan drew several styles of clothes and handed them over to Chengqian. Nah. Take these and take a good look. If there are any details you don't understand, come ask me again. After reading it, you can decide what kind of fabric you need to make it yourself, and directly ask Green Sister to go out and buy it. Chengqian took the blueprint, blushed and nodded. She took the other 3 girls back to the room to study the blueprint. Li Kuan looked at the remaining girls from Lichun Tower and saw that they were still surrounded by him. After thinking for a moment, he still said to them, you can also help Chengqian and the others. You all have the clothes that will be made later, so that Chengqian and the others can make them according to your size. This sentence immediately brought great joy to the group of girls, who chased after Chengqian and the others. Seeing everyone empty, Li Kuan stood up and wandered around the inside and outside of the Lichun building. He wants to first understand the layout here and then how to arrange for redecoration. Chapter 7. Yaojin returns to Chang'an. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After Li Kuan finished browsing and finished drawing the rough renovation blueprint, Aunt Wang had already returned with an elderly man with gray hair. Young master. This person was also one of the refugees that Miss had helped before. His name is Lu Shiji, and he came to Lin'an City to help Miss find the young master. He is a skilled carpenter. He has been in Anqing for less than a year, and almost everyone knows his name in this area. In terms of carpentry, he ranks second in Lin'an City, and no one dares to claim first. Miss Wang. How could I expect you to praise me so much? This is the young master in front of me. Lu Shiji waved his hand repeatedly to praise Aunt Wang, feeling very humble, but when he saw Li Kuan, tears streamed down his wrinkled old face in an instant. When Wang's mother confirmed that Li Kuan was the young lady's son, he bent his knees and knelt down. Old Lu Shiji has seen the young master before, but he is useless. He hasn't found the young master for so many years, and he has suffered so many years. What a shame. When Li Kuan saw the old man named Lu Shiji kneeling down for him, he was frightened and quickly squatted down, then pulled him up. At this moment, he also choked up a bit in his mouth. People who repay kindness in this era are really cute and silly, which makes his heart warm. Lu Lao. You are ruining me, Li Kuan. I also want to thank you people. For so many years, you have silently sacrificed so much for my birth mother and me. If my mother knew in heaven, she would definitely thank you too. So don't kneel down on me anymore, I can't bear it. Aunt Wang's eyes were also slightly red, and seeing that the young master was also a kind and grateful person, she was also very pleased, so she burst into tears and smiled. All right. You too, don't thank in this brothel anymore. Old Lu, hurry up and ask the young master what you need to help him with. Yes. Yes. Young master, I heard Miss Wang summon me to come over and say that you want to renovate this brothel. Li Kuan took a sniff when he got to the point of discussing the matter, then smiled and pulled Lu Lao to the blueprint he had just drawn, pointing to it and saying to him. Mr. Lu, look, I want to raise this front hall here and make it a stage. Do you think it's okay? Lu Shiji was not initially interested, but when he saw the blueprint drawn by his young master, he was directly shocked. Because he had never seen a blueprint so finely drawn, with annotations in every corner, he could understand it himself, even without the need for others to say it. Of course, he could understand everything except for the strange patterns marked on each line edge that he couldn't understand. But when he saw a comparison table with patterns and numbers at the bottom of the blueprint, he immediately understood. Amazing! Young master, you're so talented. This symbol is used as a size marker, simple and clear, and also easy to write. Based on what was drawn on the blueprint, I have reviewed it and there are no issues. That's good. Li Kuan was also very pleased. As long as Lu Lao could complete all the renovation plans he had drawn, the days when Lichun Courtyard would become famous throughout the country would not be far away. Since Mr. Lu said there was no problem, Li Kuan handed over the drawings to him, familiarized him with Arabic numerals, and instructed him to go back to the backyard to sleep for a while if there were any problems. Chang'an, the power and political center of the Tang Dynasty. At this time, it was already past morning time, and Li Shimin, as usual, was handling government affairs at the Lichun Hall. According to historical records, Li Yuan occupied the Taiji Palace in the first 3 years of the Chengqian era, and now it is only 2 years since the Chengqian era. Therefore, Li Shimin can only continue to work in the Lichun Palace. While pondering how to deal with another disaster in various regions this year, Wang Er, the eunuch of the Internal Affairs Department of Li Shimin outside the door, came in to report. Your Majesty. Duke Lu and the chief physician of the Imperial Medical Office both said that there is an important matter to announce. Li Shimin rubbed his swollen head and put down his pen before slowly speaking. Cheng may have encountered something when he went to Jiangnan Road to clean up the remaining sins this time. Let's invite them in. Eunuch Wang Er bowed down and soon Yaojin and Sima Jun entered together. Your Majesty. I have been out for a long time this time, and I miss your Majesty. I will come to see your Majesty as soon as I return to Beijing. You, Cheng can say anything nice. Let's talk about it. I want to know if something happened during this trip to Jiangnan Road. Haha. Your Majesty is truly wise. There is really something important, but, at this point, Yaojin suddenly looked at eunuch Wang Er with his big eyes. Upon seeing this, Li Shimin waved his hand and said. Number 34, no problem. To put it bluntly, Wang Er has been with me for many years and can be trusted. Number 34, seeing that His Majesty had said so, Yaojin cautiously spoke to Li Shimin. Number 34, Your Majesty. Do you still have a prince named Li Kuan? Number 34, upon hearing Yaojin's words, Li Shimin immediately stood up, his eyes constantly changing as he stared at Sima Jun beside him. Then, with a sharp eye, he shot directly at Sima Jun. His cold and murderous gaze made him tremble all over, and he knelt down with a thud. Sima Jun lay trembling on the ground. Your Majesty. You misunderstood. It wasn't my initiative to tell General Cheng, but on this trip to Jiangnan Road, we met Prince Li Kuan. What? Kuan Er is still alive. Please tell me in detail. When Li Shimin heard Sima Jun's words, his whole body became excited. Back then, he was also helpless. It was during the Tide War, so he thought of letting Wang Er, who had saved him, take his child back and wait for him. As long as he won the battle, he would take her back to the palace. But when we went to that place after the Sui dynasty was conquered, we had long lost sight of them. After asking some refugees, we found out that Wang Er had already been killed by bandits, and the child was still nowhere to be found. This incident made him feel guilty every time he thought about it. Now that he heard again that the child was still alive, how excited he was. Sima Jun saw His Majesty so excited and quickly recounted the story of him and Cheng Yaojin meeting the prince. Li Shimin looked red, suppressed his anger, and slowly listened to Sima Jun's confession. Finally, he couldn't help but shout loudly. What? My son Li Shimin, someone dares to sell it to the brothel. It's ridiculous. Cheng Yaojin quickly knelt down and said when he saw His Majesty's great fire. Your Majesty, calm down. The old minister has already executed Yazi, the person who sold the prince back then. Upon hearing that Cheng Yaojin had already executed Ren Yazi, Li Shimin felt a little better, but there was still the brothel, so he said again. What about the people from the brothel? Have you all killed them? My son, you dare not buy him. If you don't want to live, this is it. That's not the case, Your Majesty. I think that brothel madam is pretty good. If it weren't for him thinking about treating the prince who committed suicide, we wouldn't have met him either. Besides, if it were someone else, they might have secretly buried them long ago. How could they treat the servants they bought? You Cheng Ho, how dare you say that my son is a servant? You dare. Cheng Yaojin is already foolish. Your Majesty is getting angry and firing map cannons indiscriminately. I didn't know he was the prince before. But he quickly apologized to Li Shimin. Your Majesty, I said the wrong thing. I deserve to die for my crimes. But the most important thing now is how to deal with Prince Li Kuan's matter. I would not hesitate to die. Cheng Yaojin's words gradually calmed Li Shimin down, thinking that he had indeed been a bit extreme just now. Li Kuan's problem is indeed a bit troublesome to deal with. If he were to be taken back to Chang'an, considering that he has been living in poverty for so many years, his nature must be simple. He is likely to be exploited by those with intentions when he comes to Chang'an. If left unchecked, then after all, you are also your own child. How can you be willing to let it go? Forget it. Let's all get up. Let me think about it for now, you both go down. Upon hearing this, the two of them quickly thanked Long En and were about to leave. Stop. Remember this matter, you two. It's rotten in your stomach. If anyone else knows about it, you two can raise your head and meet me. Yes. I don't know anything. The bull in my family secretly had a baby cow with other cows. The bull happily bumped into it and died. I have to hurry back to deal with its aftermath. After Cheng Yaojin finished speaking, he quickly ran away, with Sima Jun following closely behind. Isn't it that Cheng Ho wants to eat beef again? This excuse is getting worse every time. I really don't rule you by law. Li Shimin looked at Cheng Yaojin running away in tears and laughter. Although he said he wanted to treat him, everyone could tell that he was not angry. But when Li Shimin sat down cross-legged again, he suddenly froze. Nyang Shipi. Cheng Ho is cursing me around the corner. Chapter 8. Starting the renovation of Lichun Courtyard. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In a room in the backyard of Lichun Courtyard in Lin'an City, Yangzhou. In a daze, Li Kuan felt a slight itching in his nose. He opened his eyes slightly and at first glance, a piece of red fabric was being gently carried and slid on his face. During the slight shaking, I touched the tip of my nose and felt like sneezing. The woman carrying the fabric saw that Li Kuan had already woken up, and immediately exclaimed in a happy voice, seeking praise. "Young master! We have made the underwear you mentioned. Let's see if it looks like this." Li Kuan finally saw clearly what the red fabric was in front of him. It was actually a red underwear cover, and it was the mischievous Chunlan who came to show off to him. Li Kuan looked at Chunlan, who had a happy but slightly red face, and couldn't breathe well. "You guys just need to try it on yourself once you're done, okay? Young master. This is the first time we've seen such clothes. Although we made them ourselves, we don't know how to wear them properly." Chunlan found that her voice was getting quieter and quieter. In fact, as soon as they made this dress, several brothel sisters tried to wear it, and the effect was much better than a belly bag. But those sisters encouraged her to take the clothes made according to her own size and let the young master teach her how to wear them. She is already 14 years old, and women in the Tang Dynasty mature much earlier than men at this age. Of course, she knows that this is the opportunity given by her sisters to approach the young master. Although the young master may not be able to become a wife even if he has a crush on her, there is still a chance to be a housemaid, so she blushed. Li Kuan glanced up and down at Chunlan, and through her dress, Xiaohe finally revealed her pointed figure, shaking her head and saying, "Xiaolan. Why don't you wait a few more years before wearing it? It's a bit wasteful to wear it now." After speaking, Li Kuan quickly got up and was excited to go out and teach those sisters how to dress. Chunlan is a pretty girl, but to him, she is still a child. There are no more aggressive sisters who dress well. When Li Kuan left the room, Chunlan was still holding her clothes foolishly. What was on her mind was the young master's words. Why did the young master ask me to wait a few years before wearing them? When he arrived at the front hall from the backyard, Mr. Liu had already started construction with several craftsmen. He approached and asked Mr. Liu if he had any difficulties or problems, and received a proud sentence from him. "I'll call more people tomorrow, and it'll be done in about 10 days. Okay." Li Kuan doesn't know where Lu Lao's confidence comes from, but for him, as long as Lu Lao can complete the renovation on the blueprint, that's all. Passing through the hall and climbing up the ladder to the second floor, I heard a room filled with giggling laughter from a woman. Li Kuan exercised his power as a young master and went in without knocking on the door. Suddenly, the whole room fell silent. Li Kuan immediately covered his eyes with both hands, but between his fingers that could run a train. But revealing his sparkling eyes. Number 34, haha number 34, this scene immediately made these brothel girls laugh non-stop. Young master. If you want to see it, just take a look. Take a look at the pear blossoms. Do I look good in this green one? It feels even bigger when I wear it. Yeah. Young master. I think mine is a bit small and a bit cramped. How about young master help me loosen the pine? Li Kuan was dumbfounded. Shouldn't it be them screaming and then throwing themselves out? How can you show off your figure in front of yourself wearing various underwear one by one? So what? I heard from Chunlan that you don't know how to wear it. I came over to take a look, but if you're all dressed up, then forget it. You guys keep going and I'll go out. Li Kuan hurriedly turned around and slipped out. If Nima stayed any longer, he was afraid of nosebleeds. I finally came downstairs, but there are still rumors circulating from upstairs. Young master, come up. Come up and play. Fortunately, Aunt Wang appeared at this moment and angrily said to the group of girls upstairs wearing sexy underwear. Go back one by one, don't teach the young master bad. Li Kuan thought to himself at this moment, Aunt Wang, you're not right to say that. It's not necessarily who taught who bad. But Li Kuan glanced at his 14-year-old body again and thought about it. Wait a few more years and teach them again. However, upon seeing Aunt Wang, Li Kuan's other thoughts were about to be implemented, so he beckoned Aunt Wang to sit down in a quieter place on the side. Aunt Wang. Usually the brothel also provides drinks and some dim sum. Li Kuan thought that after all, when the guests came, they would definitely provide some drinks, food, and so on. Otherwise, how could they say they would go to the brothel to drink flower wine? Upon hearing this, Aunt Wang nodded, but still curious about why the young master asked her this. Is it because the young master is hungry? I think so. Since yesterday, the young master has drunk a bowl of porridge in the morning. How can it be? So he stood up immediately and said. Young master, are you hungry? Aunt Wang will go and ask someone to stew chicken soup for you. After that, she will get up and walk towards the kitchen. Li Kuan didn't feel it at first, but when he heard this, his stomach really screamed. He didn't stop Aunt Wang, but he also followed him to the kitchen. The kitchen of Lichun Courtyard is quite large. Li Kuan followed Aunt Wang to the kitchen and saw several women preparing dinner for tonight. But looking at it, Li Kuan lost his appetite. What kind of cooking methods are these? All kinds of pottery jars are placed on the ground, and he doesn't even know what's being stewed inside. Anyway, Li Kuan didn't see a stir-fry, so he looked at Aunt Wang and said. Aunt Wang. These are all weird dishes made, aren't there any hard dishes? Hard dish. What does it mean? Isn't this kind of stewed dish what we usually eat? Aunt Wang looked at Li Kuan with some confusion. Okay. After staring at Aunt Wang for a while, Li Kuan completely gave up. It turned out that Aunt Wang really didn't understand. It seemed that there was no stir-fry in the early Tang Dynasty, so he couldn't make those hard dishes in later generations. Thinking of this, he said to Aunt Wang, Is there a blacksmith shop nearby? Take me to take a look. Aunt Wang immediately looked frightened and thought to herself, Young master, your taste is so strong. Do you still want to go to the blacksmith's shop to find hard vegetables to eat? Indeed, the iron lumps there are hard, but are they human food? Li Kuan saw that Wang's mother's expression was very strange, but he still asked. What's wrong? Is there a holiday between Wang Mama and the blacksmith's shop? No. No. There's no holiday. Since the young master is going to the blacksmith's shop, Aunt Wang can take you there. Wang's mother was a bit flustered, but she didn't know how to persuade the young master to say that the iron lump thing couldn't be eaten, so she had to take Li Kuan to the blacksmith's shop. After Li Kuan and Wang Yi arrived at a blacksmith's shop in the south of the city, a man with a big beard and muscular arches walked over immediately. Oh. Miss Wang is here. Is there anything missing in the store? If there's anything missing, just send someone over to explain it. Once it's done, I'll send it to you. Nyo Dolly. This time, it's not that I'm here to make something, but that our young master is here. What exactly are you going to do? You can ask the young master. Wang's mother said these words awkwardly at this moment, thinking to herself that the young master will ask you for iron bumps to eat later. What's wrong with this? Nyo Dolly didn't notice the change in Wang's mother's expression. Instead, he looked at Li Kuan, who was wrapped in burlap. The next moment, his pupils shrank and he turned to surprise and said. Young master. Miss Wang, is this Mrs. Sun? You found him. Upon hearing this, Aunt Wang smiled again and nodded. Upon receiving confirmation from Aunt Wang, Nyo Dolly immediately knelt down to Li Kuan, just like Lu Lao. But this time Li Kuan was prepared and quickly grabbed his sturdy arm. Unfortunately, Li Kuan was foolish. So what if he was prepared? Can you hold on to a strong, calf-like person and kneel down? So Li Kuan still passively accepted Nyo Dolly's kneeling and bowing. Seeing that the man was around mid-year, there should be no problem calling him uncle, so Li Kuan smiled bitterly and said to the cow on the ground, "Dolly. Uncle Nyo, get up. I have seen Lu Lao before, and he is also like this. I have told him that you are all people who hold great affection and righteousness towards my mother. I cannot bear to kneel before you, and you are not allowed to kneel before me in the future. Also, this time I'm here to ask for your help. I want to use an iron tool to make something. Can you see if you can do it?" As soon as Nyo Dolly heard that the young master wanted to help him, he immediately became energized and stood up, pulling Li Kuan and walking towards the blacksmith's shop. Chapter 9. Horse Killing Chicken. You are listening at novelfull.audio. When we arrived at the blacksmith's shop, thick heat filled the entire room. Watching several people naked, hammering on the burning iron tools, Li Kuan couldn't help but give them a thumbs up. In this era, without stamping and mechanical forging, these people were able to make various iron tools, which was really not easy. "Young master. What kind of iron weapon do you want to make? Just tell me, old cow. If there's anything you need on this ground, you can just take it away." Nyo Dolly pointed to the pile of iron tools that had already been made on the ground. Li Kuan quickly waved his hand, but said in his mouth, "These are not what I want. What I want to make are a few large pots, which are round in shape." Li Kuan squatted down as he spoke, drawing patterns on the ground with his fingers. Nyo Dolly also crouched down and looked at what Li Kuan had painted. It was a bit strange why the young master wanted this kind of thing, but he still nodded and said, "No problem, young master. What size do you need? I'll personally forge it for you later. Once it's ready, I'll send it to you." Li Kuan also showed a happy expression on his face. Unexpectedly, Nyo Dolly agreed without hesitation. It's quite difficult to forge a pot by hand. So with Li Kuan's repeated confirmation, Nyo Dolly patted his chest to ensure that he and Aunt Wang had returned to the Lichun Courtyard. After all, Li Kuan was afraid that if he didn't leave again, Nyo Dolly's big hand would slap himself with internal bleeding. Of course, after learning that her young master was not coming to the blacksmith's shop to eat hard food, Mrs. Wang finally breathed a sigh of relief. When he returned to Lichun Courtyard, Li Kuan hurriedly called for Greenfield again. "In Jie, come with me to the room." The Greenfield was taken aback. "What is this, young master? Do you like my taste?" I felt a sense of pride when I looked at my plump chest, which had appeared because I was wearing the underwear invented by the young master. But she still advised Li Kuan. "Young master. Your injury is not healed yet. Is it okay for me to wait until you recover before serving you?" After speaking, he glanced shyly at Li Kuan. "Where are you going?" "I'll go to your room first, and then you can call the other sisters over. I have something to arrange for you to do." After Li Kuan finished speaking, he didn't wait for Greenfield to speak. He shook his head and walked towards her room in silence. The green grass stood still and thought to herself, how could she even call her sisters? Is the young master playing like this? Forget it. Who calls him a young master? Can I refuse? But it seems quite exciting. So Green went to other rooms and called sisters to her own room. Li Kuan walked first to the green room, staring blankly at the pile of colorful underwear on her bed. Shoo! I didn't notice yet. In Jie's size is so big that she even had Chunlan and her team make this thin gauze one. Li Kuan had already imagined In Jie's appearance in his mind, and he couldn't help but drool. Suddenly, the door was opened and a group of brothel sisters squeezed in. Seeing the young master drooling over the clothes on his bed, Greenfield blushed and quickly tidied up the things on the bed. Ah! Hee hee. It's not bad, it looks pretty. Li Kuan awkwardly wiped the corner of his mouth. The other sisters laughed heartily when they saw this, and some even teased the Greenway, "Sister Ainzi, it's troublesome for the young master to look at the clothes. Why don't you show the young master what you're wearing?" Li Kuan saw that the situation was developing in a dangerous way, so he quickly called out to everyone, "Don't talk yet, listen to me. Sisters, please be quiet first. I came to teach you a way to make a living. Didn't I tell Mom Wang before that our brothel will no longer engage in meat and skin business? Then we must have a way to make a living, right? So I'm calling you here today to teach you the ultimate skill of killing chickens with horses." All the girls in the brothel were stunned. "Ma killed the chicken. Do you use horses to kill chickens?" Upon seeing this reaction, Li Kuan immediately explained, "Massage is a technique that I want to teach you massage." With this statement, everyone understood, but it was also strange why massages were called such strange names. At this moment, a brothel sister volunteered to stand up and looked at Li Kuan Dao with naked eyes. "Massage. It's simple. Just sit down and let me pinch it for you, young master." This sisters can do it without being taught by young master. Li Kuan gave a mysterious smile and then pointed to the speaking sister and said, "That's it for you, go lie down on Sister Yin's bed first, remember to lie down." Upon hearing this, the older sister's face immediately showed a smile of joy, and then twisted her flamboyant body to come to the edge of the green bed. "Young master. Do you want to take off your clothes first?" Li Kuan covered his forehead with his hand, unable to bear it. He wanted to be the soul of the 21st century, to come to the Tang Dynasty, and still be a young master in a brothel. Facing such fierce sisters every day is really special. No need, just lie down and let others see how I pinched it." After Li Kuan finished speaking, he walked over to the bed and sat down, then said to his sister who was already lying on the bed, "Relax your body." Then Li Kuan began to press her down from her neck. When Li Kuan's finger first pressed on his sister's acupoint on the bed, she unconsciously snorted. "MMMO, oh. Pop." Li Kuan slapped her buttocks. "Don't talk yet, feel how I press it well. This will also be a skill you will learn in the future, take it seriously." But this sentence did not make the sister shut up. As Li Kuan pressed various acupoints on her body, she couldn't control herself and always made comfortable noises. The sisters around me who watched this scene all wanted to try the young master's technique. So, while Li Kuan pressed and explained, as he began to teach seriously, these sisters also put aside their joking hearts and began to slowly remember Li Kuan's massage techniques. It wasn't until Mrs. Wang came up and asked them to come down for dinner that these girls were still discussing with each other and going downstairs. Li Kuan felt a little tired at this moment, so he lay directly on the green bed, unwilling to move even when Aunt Wang pulled him up to eat. Li Kuan is still sick and has been doing difficult and physically demanding work for half a day. Can he not be tired? Aunt Wang saw no way out, so she personally brought chicken soup and fed it to Li Kuan, which allowed him to eat something. Seeing the young master fall asleep after finishing his meal, it was not easy to disturb him. Mrs. Wang could only gently exit the door and let the young master sleep inside for a while. At this moment of sleep, Li Kuan slept until noon the next day. When he woke up, he found that the green field had dark eyes and he was sitting by the bed, head by head. Sister Yin. You didn't rest last night. Why were you so lethargic?" Upon hearing the young master wake up, Greenfield immediately lifted her head forcefully and whispered softly. "The young master is sleeping in my bed." "Ah." Li Kuan just sat up and realized that he didn't know who helped take off his coat, and this was not the same room in his backyard. He felt a bit embarrassed and said, "I was too tired yesterday and inexplicably fell asleep. I'll get up now, you come to bed and sleep for a while." Lian shook her head, helped Li Kuan put on his clothes, and said in her mouth, "Young master, I will practice the massage technique you taught yesterday with sisters later." After reading what the young master taught us yesterday, our sisters were all eye-opener. It turned out that there was so much emphasis on massage. The comfortable feeling of pinching the acupoints really made people feel happy. If we can all master it proficiently, then as the young master said, there's really no need to do those superficial business, and our Lichun Courtyard business will also become popular. Upon hearing this, Li Kuan sorted out the clothes that Lin'an had put on for him, and then pressed Lin'an onto the bed. Don't worry, as long as the young master is here, it's difficult for our Lichun Academy to become popular. You should go to bed for a while, and when you wake up, the young master will be your model. Model. The green field foolishly repeats these two words. It means I'll lie down, you give me a press, and I'll check if the press technique is correct for you. Upon hearing the young master's words, Li'an nodded happily, unable to hold back the fight between her upper and lower eyelids, and fell asleep. Li Kuan covered her with a blanket and went out. Chapter 10. Li Kuan's Planning. You are listening at novelfull.audio. As soon as I left the door, I saw many more craftsmen in the lobby downstairs, each busy with their own work. Li Kuan nodded in satisfaction. If this progress was made, the Lichun building would reopen in a week. He lay on the railing, looking down, his mind also planning what else Lichun building could do before opening. His original intention was to create the style of the Lichun building into a future club, so in the drawings he drew, he added a stage in the front hall for future performance programs. And all the low tables that were originally sitting cross-legged were removed and replaced with the square tables and chairs of later generations. On the other side of the hall to the entrance of the backyard, a large cash register counter is designed, and there is also a hallway not far away that leads to the entrance of the backyard. The two sides of this door are written with bathing, sauna, and sweat steaming. Entering through the gate, the rooms on both sides have been transformed into changing rooms, with many cabinets inside, similar to those in later bathhouses. Secondly, the backyard was divided into a super large room, where he designed a large bathhouse. The pool was opened with bamboo, which was used to add water to the people outside who were boiling water. Moreover, the weather is about to cool down. He has designed many bamboo pipes around this room, connecting the stove for boiling water outside. This way, when boiling hot water outside, water vapor will enter the hall, which can also increase the temperature and keep warm. And there are two small rooms on each side of this bathhouse, one is the toilet and the other is the sweat steam sauna. He added a staircase from the bathroom to the second floor, and when he went up to the second floor, he removed the rooms on both sides and changed them to an open style, where he could see the stage performance below. The general renovation is like this. It's only been about a day now, and the stage and seats in the lobby are almost done. Now there is a lack of performers and attractive food and drinks. Thinking of this, he didn't even wash his face and went to find Chunlan and the 4 other girls in one room after another. When he saw 4 people in a house, he was all startled. At this moment, all 4 girls were wearing dark circles under their eyes, constantly making various qipao clothes that they had instructed. And Li Kuan also noticed that several of them had needle wounds on their fingers, which really made these girls suffer. They had to ask Wang Mama to give them more monthly money when they turned around. The arrival of Li Kuan also made the 4 of them a bit panicked, but after a moment, they all abandoned their work and bowed to Li Kuan. I've seen the young master. As expected, she is a female family member of an official family, and her etiquette is much better than that of the original brothel sisters. Li Kuan waved his hand. You're welcome, don't be too busy and don't rest. Later, I'll ask Aunt Wang to find some skilled hands to make clothes for the 4 of you, and you can take some time to sleep. This sentence immediately made the 4 girls nervous. Young master. But what's wrong with what we have done? Our 4 sisters are working hard to finish the clothes in a week. Chunlan was so anxious that she was almost crying, and the other 4 girls also looked nervous. As soon as Li Kuan saw this, he knew they had misunderstood. He probably thought he blamed them for being slow and didn't let them do it. Don't worry, I didn't blame you. On the contrary, you all did well. I just have other tasks for the four of you, and working all night like this is not good for your physical development. Chengqian was the largest and also the smartest among the few people. Upon hearing this, she immediately said to Li Kuan, "Young master. But besides showcasing female celebrities, we are not good at anything else. I don't know what we can do to help young master." Li Kuan looked at the four exhausted maids and felt a little heartbroken, so he said, "I think you are all members of the official family and should be able to read. I plan to write some storybooks and hand them over to the four of you. After our store reopens, you can go on stage and perform. But I haven't written my script yet, so you four go rest. I'll call you when I finish writing some scripts." A few maids breathed a sigh of relief upon hearing this. The young master didn't dislike the four of them, but instead instructed them to read the script. This was not a big problem for them, as all of them could read. But Chengqian still said to Li Kuan, "Young master, when the people called by Mrs. Wang come over, let's take over and then go rest. After all, we have been working for so long and have gained a lot of experience. It will be faster for them to get started with the handover." Li Kuan was surprised to see Chengqian. This girl seems to have some knowledge and has a set of plans for her work. It's good, and she can keep it for future use. So Li Kuan nodded and instructed the four of them to rest well before going out to find Aunt Wang to arrange manpower. Chang'an. Li Shimin didn't sleep well all night, and he also had something to report to the court in the morning. He had nothing to do but leave the court. All the ministers, seeing that His Majesty was feeling a bit lethargic, thought he was sick and advised Li Shimin to take good care of his dragon body, and then asked the imperial physician to show him. But Li Shimin waved his hand and didn't use it. He just called Cheng Yaojin to the imperial study after going down to court. "Jijia. I would like you to do me a favor, may I ask?" As soon as Cheng Yaojin heard this, the chrysanthemums tightened. If your Majesty spoke to him so politely, it would definitely not be a good thing. Suddenly, his eyes rolled around, trying to predict what His Majesty was going to ask him to do for him so that he could refuse. But after thinking for a while, he couldn't figure it out, and seeing that His Majesty was still staring at him, he had no choice but to say with a bitter face, "Your Majesty, please order that as long as I, old Cheng, can help, I will definitely do it." Li Shimin saw Cheng Yaojin agree, and only then did a faint smile appear on his face. "Jijia. I want you to go to Luocheng, Yangzhou to be the county magistrate for a period of time. What do you think?" "What?" Cheng Yaojin was so foolish that he asked himself, a rough man who didn't know a few big characters, to become a county magistrate. Isn't this just a joke? Besides, at least I am also a national official. It would be ridiculous for my colleagues to be arranged to become a small county magistrate. But in an instant, he understood that Prince Li Kuan was in Luocheng. Should he go take care of him or supervise him? Cheng Yaojin is not sure about this. But this kind of hard work is a thankless job, so he said to Li Shimin with a bitter face, "Your Majesty. It's not that I refuse, it's just that I don't recognize a single character. I'm afraid it might ruin your Majesty's business." Upon hearing this, Li Shimin waved his hand and said directly, "No problem. I have already made a plan. Tomorrow morning in court, you can find a way to argue with Wei Zheng in the court. Then I will come forward and punish both of you, demoting you to the rank of Luocheng County Magistrate for 3 months, and demoting Wei Zheng to the rank of Shirya. This will make up for your lack of literacy. But remember not to reveal the relationship between Wang Er and me to Wei Zheng, do you understand? Cheng Yaojin is so foolish. He truly deserves to be your Majesty. He is really skilled in playing with this skill. Send yourself and Wei Zheng out of Chang'an, so that there will be fewer cases of trouble in Chang'an. Your Majesty doesn't need Wei Zheng to admonish him every day. And take yourself away, while helping His Majesty investigate the character of this prince, and how much it can secretly protect Prince Li Kuan. This is really amazing. A stone smashed several chicks. Your Majesty has made it so clear that Yaojin is not a person without vision, so he can only accept it with a bitter face.